The purpose of this video is to assist you in your preparation of problem P4, a set of financial statements for a merchandising company. You should have your book open to the appropriate page, and you should have the file called F-Merch open. Notice the file name in parentheses at the top of page 40 is F-Merch. However, on your USB drive, the file is called F-Merch4A. The file has been amended, but believe it or not, it still contains an error. Let me describe the error to you. Look at the accounts payable balance in your book on page 40. You'll notice that the amount is for $135,000. That is the wrong amount. The amount on your file in cell G7 here is $35,000, that is the correct amount. So it should not be $135,000 as your text says. It should be $35,000. In this problem, we will prepare a set of financial statements for a corporate merchandising firm. In Accounting 100, you focused on a sole proprietorship instead of a corporation. This means that the second statement, which is a statement of owner's equity for a sole proprietor, will be a bit different because this entity is a corporation. The second financial statement for a corporation is called a statement of retained earnings. You can scroll down and look at the format of it right here. A statement of retained earnings shows the change in the account retained earnings from the beginning of the period to the end of the period. Retained earnings is income that is retained or held within the company. Another way of thinking about it is it's the net income that a corporation generates, which is not paid out to its owners in the form of dividends. The statement of retained earnings shows the change in the account over a period of time. It's calculated as beginning retained earnings plus plus net income minus dividends. That'll give us the change in equity, and we'll wind up with the ending balance. We'll talk about how to fill in the titles and formulas in a moment. The ending retained earnings balance will be transferred from the statement of retained earnings down to the balance sheet. In fact, another change between a sole proprietorship and a corporation is the equity section of the balance sheet. You're going to see two accounts here. Common stock is title X, and retained earnings is title Y. Again, we'll start filling these out together in just a moment. So let's get started with that background information in mind. When you open the file, you'll see that there are many accounts in the data section which are in alphabetical order. Our job is to fill in all the account names that are notated by titles. In addition, we'll be filling in the various formula amounts for the dollar values. We will do this through cell referencing the accounts when possible, or typing in the line item when it cannot be cell referenced. Then we'll take care of filling in these formulas by also cell referencing them to the appropriate cell in the data section, or by performing a computation. We do not want to enter any numbers in the answer section. So once again, there should be no numbers down here. By using cell references, we can reuse the same file every month. And as long as the data section changes, those are the blue numbers that I'm showing you, then the answer section should always update automatically. Once again, if you use any numbers in the formula section, you have made an error because your template will not update itself when the new set of numbers are entered in future months. This is an important concept to understand. This is the concept of flexibility. Our templates are much more valuable when we can use them repeatedly. That is, if we can simply change the data section, here are the numbers in blue, and have the answer section automatically recompute by itself, then the template is a lot more useful. So let's work on part of this template together. Let's focus on the income statement. I especially want to show you the cost of goods sold section. So once again, let's start off by looking at the revenues. Here we see that sales less something else equals net sales. So in Accounting 100, you learned of a couple contra revenue accounts whose purpose was to reduce sales on the income statement. Can you remember what they were? There were two of them. There was sales returns and allowances and sales discounts. Let's move up to the data section, and you'll notice that in this problem, all we have in the term of contra accounts for the revenue accounts is the sales discounts. Now instead of typing it, you might be better served cell referencing. So I'm going to come down here, put in an equal sign, and go pull the sales discount account and press enter. Once again, if you go look at the contents of the cell up here in the formula, we cell referenced it to cell A29. Okay, let's go grab the dollar values. Again, do not enter any numerical values. Everything will be cell referenced. So for my sales line, I'm going to press equals, and I'm going to go grab my sales value up here in G28 and press enter. And for my sales discounts, I'm going to press equals. I'm going to go grab that 48,000 and press enter. Once again, everything's cell referenced. Here's a formula. Instead of a cell reference, it's asking us to compute something. It's asking you to compute net sales. Remember that the word net means after discounts. Think of your net paycheck that you take home. That is the money that you have left over after all the deductions are taken out. So it is with net sales. This is sales after the deduction. So I'm going to calculate it once again by using cell references. Equals sales less the sales discounts, and press enter. And it's cell referenced. Now let's work on probably the toughest section of this, which is cost of goods sold. So once again, there are some titles and there are formulas. If you recall from Accounting 100, when we were talking about a company using a periodic system, the goal here was to figure out the cost of the merchandise sold. So we started off with beginning inventory. The author gave that to us. And the next section says something less something equals net purchases. Remember what net means? It means after deductions. So here for Title B, we're going to have equals, and we're going to go grab that purchases account up here in cell A20 and press enter. And less Title C, I'm going to press the equal sign. I'm going to go grab the contra account called purchases discount and press enter. And then we're going to fill in the dollar values. I'm going to go grab the purchases dollar value up there in cell G20. And the purchases discount, I'm going to go grab in cell G21. By the way, if you don't like scrolling up and down, consider setting up a split screen. You learned how to do that in the lessons. So now we're ready to calculate net purchases. I'm going to take the purchases account and subtract out the purchases discount. And automatically when I put that in, the cost of goods available for sale was computed automatically. So our goal is to calculate cost of goods sold. I'm going to subtract out my ending inventory. So once again, I'm going to put in my equal sign. I'm going to find my merchandise inventory at the end and pick up that cell reference. And finally, I'm ready to calculate cost of goods sold, which is the difference between these two cells. So I'm going to put my formula in there. Equals 481,635, at least the cell reference for that, minus the ending inventory. And when I do that, cost of goods sold will automatically populate, and the line item below it populated as well. Which brings me to Title D. Take a look at what this is calculating. It looks like it's the difference between the net sales and the cost of goods sold. Can you remember what we call that? And the difference between the two is called gross profit. That's not an account name, so you cannot reference it to the data section. It is a title of a computation. So we're going to type in the word gross profit. You're going to continue along on the income statement. Your next goal will be looking at all the expenses and allocating them either to selling expense or general expense. In general, a selling expense is an expense related to the sales process. A key word in an account would be sales. Otherwise, if the expense is not related to the sales process, it's considered a general or administrative expense. So this will take you a little bit of time by looking at all the account titles and all the formulas. Your job is to complete the template. How will you know that you've done the template correctly? Check it very carefully. Notice that the author gives you a total asset check figure. This will be shown on the balance sheet. And remember that they call it a balance sheet for a reason. It has to balance. In other words, make sure that not only do you get the check figure for the assets correct, but that the liabilities and equity total up to the assets so that the statement balances. One more thing I want to talk to you about, and that's the Worksheet Tickler on page 42 of your text. I'm going to read it, and then we'll talk about how to approach it. So from your book on page 42, the Worksheet Tickler says, your boss would prefer to have the balance sheet shown before the income statement and the statement of retained earnings. Please make this change on the FMerch3 file. Preview the printout to make sure that the worksheet will print neatly on 2 or 3 pages, and then print the worksheet. And they give you instructions for saving the file. Okay, so how are you going to approach that? Again, what the author's asking you to do is to take this balance sheet and to place it before the income statement and the statement of retained earnings. So here's a hint. Figure out approximately how big your balance sheet is, how many lines it takes up. I'm glancing at it. It looks like it's about 25 to 30 lines. So I need to create some new space. So let's unprotect the worksheet. That's under the Review tab. Unprotect. And now, since the balance sheet's about 30 lines long, I'm going to create some space by highlighting about 30 lines. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact, just about 30 lines. Then I'm going to insert some rows, which you can do under the Home tab. Insert. So I've created space. Then, once I've created that space, I can go cut and paste the balance sheet. So you would go to the bottom of the balance sheet. You would highlight it. Of course, everything would be filled in and completed when you do this. Go grab it and then cut and paste. You paste it here. You guys learned how to do this in the lessons. And then you can clean it up. So there's my balance sheet. If you have blank lines in between here, you could go delete them. Okay. And once you deleted those lines, you would be good to go. And now your balance sheet with all the numbers will be located before your income statement and your statement of retained earnings. Okay, your author mentioned that it should print neatly on the pages. So you don't want to split a financial statement in the middle. So here's a hint. Use the page break preview button down here in the right hand corner. The page break preview line you learned about in the lessons. It will put an imaginary set of blue lines between where the template's going to split the page, and you can move those lines up and down so that you get a nice clean template. In other words, I'll move that blue line there and move this one up to a more appropriate place. We don't want it to split in the middle. So now we have 3 neat pages, one with the data section, one with the balance sheet, and one with the income statement and the statement of retained earnings. We might even want to change this line to get the statement of retained earnings by itself. That's the example of what your author's talking about. So once again, I'm here to help you with anything that comes up. If you have a general question and you would like a classmate to answer it, consider posting the question on the discussion board or chat in live time with your classmates on the Talonnet website in the chat room box. If you have a specific question for me, the best thing to do is to email me, as I read my email many times during a typical day. I look forward to reading your updates by Sunday night.